Each year, millions upon millions of lives are lost in order to have a chance to save just a select handful. Now, our question for this presentation is, should embryonic stem cells be used for medical and scientific purposes? Our group takes a stance that no, they should not, and instead we should use adult stem cells and iPSCs. Now, the main question is, what are stem cells? Stem cells are basically a type of cell that can differentiate into any kind of cell. They can become lung, muscle, brain, any kind of tissue really. Now, they are found mostly inside human or any organism embryos, and also inside the organisms themselves. Now, the two main types that we'll be focusing on in this presentation are embryonic stem cells, which are pluripotent stem cells that can differentiate into any kind of cell. And they are found inside the embryos of an organism. The second type is adult stem cells. They are multipotent, in which they can only differentiate into a select number of cells, and they are found throughout the tissues and organisms inside the organisms themselves. Now here's Marie with the government issues.
All right, looking back through history, there have been many times when the government played a major role in stem cell research. The two most significant are the passing of the Dickey-Wicker Amendment and President Bush's federal statement. The Dickey-Wicker Amendment, passed in 1996, stated that the United States federal government could not aid or fund the research or creation of any sciences or experiments in which a human embryo is destroyed, discarded, or knowingly subjected to risk of injury or death. The amendment passed through the legislative branch in about 2 days with little resistance from either party. Another instance in which the government got involved with stem cell research occurred in 2001 when President Bush made an announcement that no embryonic stem cell research line could be funded with federal funds if it was opened after August 9, 2001. Thus leaving only about 70 research companies open for federal funding. Later, President Obama issued an order stating that government funding would be available for companies formed after Bush's order. However, a federal judge overturned Obama's executive order, stating that the order violated the Dickey-Wicker Amendment. Despite the fact that most of the other judges were in agreement with the overturning of this order, Obama decided to ignore the decision, and the lawsuit was thrown up by another judge. And now we're going to Ravant, who will introduce the ethical debate over stem cells.
Okay, so Robert P. George, a senior lecturer at Harvard, stated that the principle to which I subscribe is one that says that all human beings are equal and ought not to be harmed or considered to be less than human on the basis of age or size or the stage of development or condition of dependency. So the first thing we have to accept is that the embryo is just the earliest stage of human life. And an analogy to this is that just because an infant doesn't have the same bodily functions as an adult, it doesn't mean that it's not an inferior being. So going back to an embryo, if an embryo is kept and not disturbed, it would eventually develop into a human being. So assuming that an embryo is a human being, you would be destroying one human so that you could save another, so it would be sacrificing one life for another, which really there is no point to. So next is Marie.
Alright, when examining the trials of embryonic stem cell transplants, it becomes clear that they have many medical issues. In 2004, a group of scientists tested embryonic stem cell on several rats. In addition to the large cysts that formed at injection sites, scientists discovered that 20% of the rats had died of tumors a few weeks after the test. On March 8, 2001, the New England Journal of Medicine reported that a group of Parkinson's disease patients received transplants of fetal brain cells. As a result, they began to react wildly and show uncontrollable movements such as writhing, twisting, head jerking, arm flailing, and constant chewing. From these two instances, it can be seen that the transplantation of embryonic stem cells is very unpredictable and a rather dangerous procedure. In addition, there are also several funding issues that come with this type of research. Embryonic stem cell research is very expensive, and due to the ethical controversy and government involvement, it is sometimes difficult to acquire the needed funds. One company, Geron Corporations, was furthering research using embryonic stem cells to reverse spinal cord damage. However, they were forced to discontinue due to the lack of adequate funds for the process. It simply does not make sense to spend a large amount of money on research that is just going to be discontinued. And now on to Gavin, who will be explaining the advantages of embryonic stem cells.
Now, the majority of the population recognizes embryonic stem cells for their disadvantage in the ethical lens, because you have to harm or kill a human embryo to obtain them. But that's not the reason. But the main reason that people want them is because they have so much more potential than adult stem cells in the scientific lens, because they are pluripotent, which means they can differentiate into any cells, while the adult stem cell is multipotent, which is limited to what it's allowed to differentiate into because you obtain it from a specific organ, so it's limited in that sense. Also, if the body does not reject the embryonic stem cell when it's implanted, it has the possibility to cure a lot more diseases, such as numerous types of cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's disease. And to help reduce the risk of it, there are medications you can take to help reduce the risk. And now going back to Ravon.
So, there are many more benefits of adult stem cells too. They are often much easier to obtain, as they can be directly taken from the patient through bone marrow or some other type of body part, and without the ethical issue of embryonic stem cells, which includes the destruction of a human embryo. Also, there's a much lower cost to the adult stem cells, as the embryonic stem cells average about $0.46 million per project, while the adult embryonic, or I think I flipped that up, adult stem cells average $0.36 million per project. And there are little to no medical issues, as adult stem cells have not been proven to cause cancer or any other type of side effects that embryonic stem cells had.
Just stop there. Okay. What was